Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Corinn Altomare. Thanks for being on the show, Corinn.
Thank you, Whitney, for having me.
My pleasure. A little about Corinn, in case you haven't heard of her before. She has a very unique background. I don't think we've had anybody on the show that's had a background like her before. And so I'm interested to hear her story and transition into real estate. But she was a classically trained musician turned real estate investor. She spent 13 years in music and 5 years in IT project management. She now has 8 years in multifamily real estate, where she's developed the property management and syndication functions of her company, Hearthfire Holdings. Her company most recently acquired through syndication a self-storage facility, diversifying the company's portfolio of commercial and residential multifamily properties in the Philadelphia MSA. Corinn, thank you so much for your time. Get us started, and let's just jump right into your background a little bit in this transition, into the syndication business. And I know a lot of listeners are attempting and trying hard to make that same transition themselves. And so I think it's very beneficial to hear how others have done it successfully.
Right. So I started as a professional opera singer. That was my life's work and passion. And that's what brought me to Philadelphia, where I ultimately got started in real estate. I relocated here from Los Angeles on a short-term contract. Now, the unfortunate thing about pursuing your passion is that it doesn't always pay the bills. And when it does, it might be on a very irregular basis. So I also had a resume that helped me thrive in a corporate environment as well. And so I was working as an IT project manager in addition to my musical pursuits here in Philadelphia. And it was leveraging that W-2 job in order to qualify for my first investment property, which initially was just to be a source of passive income for me to continue pursuing my dreams. And once I got into real estate and started learning about what you could do, not only to provide tenants a fantastic place to live, but as we got into syndicating, being able to provide investors a source of financial windfall and growth for themselves and their family, that's what really hooked me in, what you're able to do with syndicating larger projects and including in other investors in your endeavors. So I started with a single triplex and with my then boyfriend, dragged him along into my real estate investing pursuits. Our next project we purchased together 9 months later, and then we started syndicating a little over a year after that at first just with family and very close friends, because it was a new venture for us. And then that broadened into our extended network. We both were holding down our full-time day jobs while we were exploring and getting into real estate, and then building our business, implementing business processes and operations. I was an IT project manager. My partner was 22 years in IT in various forms, started with just building computers from scratch, did a little foray in security, and very much in the IT space. So we leveraged everything that we knew about technology and systems and outsourcing so that the business didn't need us manually to be involved at every facet in order for it to continue to grow. And that's how we were able to scale from 3 units to 300 in self-storage, most recently in 2019, while still holding down our full-time jobs. We both ended up quitting 2016 and 2017. So we're more recently into things full-time, but for much of our build and growth and development, we were hustling. It was evenings, weekends, 10 minutes here and there in between meetings, lunch hour, that sort of thing.
I've been there. That was, like your story is more similar to mine than you might think. I was not a professional opera singer though. However, I did have a passion that really, I didn't recognize it at the time, but it was really holding me back. more than anything, like pursuing this thing, like you said, that may never pay the bills, you know?
And now, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Now that we're doing this now that we're in real estate and doing this full time, I do still sing, and I'm able to love it that much more because I don't have the financial pressures of having to make everything else fit.
Yes. And yes, that's awesome. So tell me though, I mean, it's not easy to say, pull back on a passion like that maybe you felt like you were getting some traction. I mean, you come all the way to Philadelphia to do this, right? And you feel like you're probably getting some traction, but now you see that maybe you need to take a different direction for a little bit. Is that accurate?
I started in high school. I went to a performing arts magnet high school. And so I had been doing the hustle for a really long time, and I was ready for a change. High school, both of my college degrees, and then bouncing around the world for a little bit on different programs and whatnot. And it wasn't bringing me the joy anymore. And I was ready for a change, and jumping into IT project management and learning all of that in that world. That spoke to, because I started on piano when I was 5. So that spoke to my foundations in music of doing scales and your hand and exercises for 2 hours a day, the very introverted focusing on technique part of things. The technology and project management side of that job really helped me tap into that part of my personality, and equating that to real estate and property management and landlord-tenant interactions. I just loved putting together project plans and acting on those plans, building independencies, building in your contingencies so that, whatever scenario might come up, you're prepared for it. So those were all the other, perhaps less artistic sides of me that really came alive when I found myself wanting to change and moving into real estate. I found that there's so many parts of real estate, and so many varied parts of real estate, and different roles you can play, different strategies and ways to make it work for you and for your individual proclivities and just how you function, that I really found a lot of happiness there.
Wow. So I want to get into how you all leverage technology and how you all have made this happen while, both of you working full time. I think that's a common struggle. I know it was for me, and I'm sure it is for lots of the listeners as well. But I would also like to back up just quickly and say, what had to change? What would you say had to change, say personally, for you to really make this mindset shift to being able to do real estate full time?
What had to change for me and my mindset to do it full time? So it wasn't about me anymore, right? As an artist, you yourself are the instrument, or as a singer, you yourself are the instrument, and you're working with a big group of people. You're working with the orchestra, your conductor, your fellow performers. So the fundamental mind shift is really all of the details involved in real estate. There's so many more things that can go wrong and that you have to be prepared for. In my experience in music, I enjoy jazz, but I did not get into it quite as much. So you're going off of score, you're going off of music that's written down for you, and you memorize and prepare for that. In real estate, you can't predict whether a hurricane's going to come and knock down a tree and come through your roof. So being able to mentally prepare for all those different scenarios. But again, my work in project management, I think, helped me make that shift in my years, where it was really interesting because as I was learning and growing in project management, I was building our business. And so I was learning in both of these fields, but there were so many correlations and things that I could apply from my day job to real estate and to our growth. I hope that answered enough of the question.
Sure. No, that's good. That's good. It's good. It's just, it's different for everybody sometimes, but I just think, my mindset had to change a lot for me to start seeing growth personally, before the business did. But working full time, I did the same thing, and it's difficult working every night, weekend, holiday, sometimes up at, 5 a.m. Sometimes taking calls in, different things. But for you, let's talk about some of the tech that you leverage to do, because I know you all are also management in-house as well, and which I love that you all are that hands-on. But let's get into some of the technology that you all have utilized to make that happen.
Sure. So heavy use of templates. We invested very early on into a full property management system. We use Propertyware, which is a RealPage company, and it was an expensive move to make very early on, but we made that investment because we knew that we wanted to grow, and we didn't want to waste our time bumbling around with self-made operations. So we purchased and invested heavily in really utilizing the full strengths of Propertyware, which has built-in DocuSign mail merge. It's a very, very powerful tool. I could probably spend the whole hour talking about it. So we did that. We also established templates so that we're not sending out email messages for the various repetitive scenarios that come up. We have a standard process. We know what sort of communication we send out depending on the scenario. All sorts of automated notifications and reminder settings for when it comes to leasing and marketing. We use a product called ShowMojo that was really a game changer for us. The amount of time that we spent back and forth answering phone calls, setting up showings, and all of that, we saved all of that when we converted over to ShowMojo, which if your listeners are not familiar with that and they're in property management, leasing, or marketing, I highly, highly recommend checking it out.
Sure, Mojo?
ShowMojo, ShowMojo. And you can do, I could spend far too much time talking about it. Check it out. Okay. And so leveraging those systems. And then for our investor management, we use IMS, Investor Management Services, which presents to our investors a portal that consolidates all of their investments with us. It's a very clean presentation of all the financial data, as well as for new offerings. It streamlines the process as far as they all go through IMS. So it's not us fielding various phone calls and emails kind of outside of the system and then having to pull it all together. We funnel everything through our IMS portal, and it also helps us manage the distributions when it comes time for that. So those are some of the technology. Those are really the biggest heavy hitters: Propertyware, ShowMojo, and IMS.
Nice. And what is, maybe elaborate a little bit on like ShowMojo. That's why, and we haven't heard of Propertyware either on the show, I don't think, before. So let me ask you about that first as well. Is that for somebody that's strictly, they're doing all the property management themselves, or would that be for maybe, I'm not sure what or what Propertyware does for you, but it sounds like it's all the property operations or management operations. Is that correct?
Right. It's our entire back-end system for managing the properties. So all of the information about a property, all of its details, you can set up within the calendar and maintenance function. You can set up automated reminders for forward-looking at maintenance issues, whether you need to, every spring or fall, schedule some sort of cleanup for the property or what have you. It's also how we keep all of the tenant information. So all of the application fee and application process comes through Propertyware so that the prospect is directly fed into the system. That makes it very simple to screen them, collect all of their supporting documentation from application to conversion into moving in, and then it's a click of a button to convert them into a tenant, activating their tenant portal. So similar to our investors, they have one login, they see all of their lease documentation is pre-populated, they have a ledger, they can pay online, they can communicate with us through a chat feature or a chat feature within the portal, so that and it's one central place for the multiple members of our company to see all of that, right? So I don't have to check in with our leasing agent and say, hey, did so-and-so get back to you about XYZ maintenance issue? If we're using the system properly and it allows for all of this, then the tenant entered a work order. We responded. There's a communication thread directly on the work order. So I can go there within our system and see exactly who spoke to whom about what and where things stand. And so it makes the process much more streamlined. It also provides to the tenants our accountability, right? They can see when they entered a work order, when we responded, who we sent out there, and when it was closed, and what exactly was done to close it. So they're not making a phone call and leaving a voicemail that maybe goes unanswered for days, weeks, months on end. When I moved from Los Angeles to Philadelphia, I was a renter. And when I got into property management, I swore that I would not be, I had a less than stellar experience. So that's our way of staying accountable to our tenants. And the owners also have their owner portal login, so they can see the same thing. They can see the maintenance work orders. They see the receipts that are attached to those. They see where their money is going, and in real time, because everything goes through PropertyWare. So as soon as we enter it there, the owners can log in and see it. There's no lag. It's really complete transparency.
And is Show Mojo, is that something that's just for building templates, or is it more than that? Who is the ideal person to need that?
Show Mojo is marketing and leasing. So you could have, if owners are self-managing, you could definitely use it and plug it into however else you're operating your portfolio. Essentially what it does is you create the listing once within their platform, and it disperses it out to 50 plus websites. So you don't have to be creating the listing across Zillow, across Hotpats, across all the different. So it saves you time there as far as the syndication aspect of it. And then with Show Mojo, also you can set it up so that when people submit email inquiries, Show Mojo will automatically send a response to those email inquiries. So you can imagine how much time that saved us in responding to, and it's within minutes that the inquiry email comes in, and you can completely customize the response. So we always send, the full listing. Right now, because we're in lockdown, we're doing 3D virtual tours. So sharing the link to that for interested applicants to do that on their own time before speaking further with us. So that was really the time saver and the power of Show Mojo. They also have if you're doing self tours, they have lock boxes that you can set up on the property where prospective applicants can enter their information. We require ID and a credit card before they can get access to the lockbox. And the lockbox gives a generated code that is good for 1 hour for the applicant to walk through the property. And we're notified when the lockbox is accessed for them to take out the key, and then when it's accessed again for them to remove it. And we have, should anything go wrong, we have their ID and their credit card on file.
Wow. I like that. We'll have to look into that a little bit more. That's very interesting. Appreciate you sharing that. But while we have a few more minutes, I want to get into just, your company a little more and your all's focus a little bit. And then also, I know you all are starting a blind fund as opposed to doing funds on individual properties like a lot of syndications or syndicators do. And so I want to get into that just a little bit, maybe the thought process behind doing a blind fund versus the way you used to do it, and just kind of what, your all's focus is right now in the industry.
Sure. So we really had a strong track record in multifamily. We purchased mostly 2014, 2015, 2016, and then we found that the margins were getting thinner and thinner, right? It was getting much more competitive in the multifamily space because of our desire to be hands-on. We wanted to stay somewhere within the 2 to 3 mile radius of Philadelphia where we could get to the asset easily and keep an eye on things. So we pivoted into self-storage. And our most recent syndication was a 35,000 square foot self-storage facility closer to Lancaster area, so still reachable from Philadelphia. And up until now, each syndication has been its own entity, standard GP-LP structure with our company serving as the GP and all of our investors being limited partners. And we're very happy with the self-storage space. So we fully expect our future acquisitions to be within either self-storage or affordable living, affordable lifestyle assets. So we are looking at manufactured home communities or RV parks as an affordable family vacation home destination sorts of investments. So we are looking at those while our base is still in multifamily. So we'll continue, keeping our eyes and ears open across all of those different asset classes. The pool fund we're setting up so that we can move quicker. We're expecting, as we recover or reestablish the new normal coming out of COVID-19, we're expecting there to be plenty of well-capitalized players that are just waiting for the blood to hit the streets and make some acquisitions at prices that we couldn't have achieved up until now. So we're setting up the fund so that we are able to move quickly once we identify the right project.
Yes. So when would you say you all knew you were ready to do a blind fund? That's not something that normally somebody can do. Obviously, when you have no credibility, you have no track record, right? You already have to have lots of established relationships with investors. But when did you all? Is it because you all have a track record? You all have years of experience now investing, and was that when you're because of what's happening now, like you just highlighted that. Now, okay, we can do this because of our track record, or what was it for you all?
We're really finding the economies of scale, right? And we've played in the smaller spaces now. We've really been hands-on and in the weeds so that as we go up to larger levels, the self-storage facility, for example, right? We're not there every day operating it now. We have strong technology systems in place, and with self-storage, you can be completely unmanned and just operate it completely remotely. But it was all of those years of us putting in the work and playing at the smaller levels and learning so that as we grow and scale into these larger projects, we know what the numbers are supposed to be because we've been doing it. And so we know not to completely trust the pro forma. We have our own numbers for our underwriting and our analysis. And we have built and grown this pool of investors. We want to continue doing right by them. Up until now, we have been able to deliver 23-24% IRR to our investors, which we're incredibly proud of, and we want to continue that. And in order to do that, we want to move into larger assets that will continue to afford us the opportunity to deliver that.
Corinn, what's been the hardest part for this syndication business for you?
Working for and with friends and family. It's a terrifying amount of responsibility, right? When you are being entrusted with your family's money. And I think that's also set us up for success because we've been very conservative and it's been our own money along with our investors. And that's why we keep the hands-on property management. That's why we are very, very involved in all of the day-to-day. But it's challenging taking that first step and saying, okay, let's make a push for it and just jumping in. I would say the first step is the hardest, right? When just moving from analysis paralysis to actually doing.
What's a way that you all have recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
We've continued to throw a lot of technology at our operations. I'm not sure if it's necessarily, it's right in line with our track record, but with the lockdown and not being able to do showings or not being able to be on site for management for self-storage, self-storage was deemed an essential business. So we've been open, but operating everything remotely, really just more strongly leveraging technology. We identified a photographer that uses 3D technology. And whereas that has until now really been reserved for the higher end buy and sell properties, we found a local operator told them our story and the whole of our portfolio and said, look, we have 100 doors that we would use you exclusively for. What's the best rate that you can give us? And so we're able to offer that technology in order to keep our vacancies turning over. We've placed three tenants during the course of this lockdown that have been completely contactless move in and move out processes. So I would continue, there's so many resources out there in the technology space, just continue leveraging that and not trying to do everything ourselves manually, but reaching out to experts in the field who can help streamline the process overall and revolutionize what we're all doing.
What's a way that you all stand out with your investors amongst all the other operators?
I would say it's our personal touch. We really, we started with friends and family. We really bear that responsibility, and our goal is to set up the entire family legacy for one of long-term wealth. So we're not here to make a quick buck. We are here to educate, and neither of us really came from a family of real estate investors. We had to do a lot of not only educating ourselves, but our family and our friends and those who ended up being our first investors as well, about what we were learning and seeing from our first original personal investments, right? We ate our own dog food first. We went through it all with our own blood, sweat, and tears. And so our differentiator is really the investors that come to us and work with us. We want to educate you. So if you're still learning about the space, and people that we work with aren't necessarily just investors, we help guide and consult for just personal buying and selling as well, or if needing some extra hands-on help managing your rental, we do that as well. We just want to spread the awareness of what can be accomplished through real estate. We're finding the economies in scale in syndication, but if you're just looking to build a small multifamily portfolio yourself, we're happy to help share what we've experienced and learned along the way as well.
How are you all finding investors right now, or what's your best source of meeting new investors?
That's a good question. So we're fairly active in a couple different networks. My husband is a blogger for Bigger Pockets, so he does get a fair amount of contacts that way. I'm certainly the more introverted one. So I am involved in a network for women in real estate that's more knowledge sharing. That's less about gathering investors. I will say that primarily our investors came from our W-2 jobs. I mean, it's amazing that our contacts in the corporate workspace didn't have any exposure to real estate. And so the daily lunch conversation was, well, Corinn, what's your latest landlord war story, right? So those are always great fun. But then when you tie in, but I made X amount percentage return on dealing with all of those headaches, then that starts getting people thinking, oh, well, maybe this might be a good option instead of just relying upon my 401k. So I would say probably coworkers, and then just we talk about it wherever we go, and just continue to spread awareness.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Pushing through, resiliency. Just keep on getting up. Don't let the knocks keep you down. Just keep on pushing through. And when things stop working, like for me, when things aren't joyful anymore in music, taking a step back, taking a breath, reevaluating your landscape, and maybe picking a different path, maybe trying something else slightly different. I never would have expected to be in a self-storage syndication, but following all the different twists and turns in the journey has brought me here, and I'm so grateful that I was just kind of went along with all the different changes and try something new out.
And how do you like to give back? So
I am involved in the Real Estate Invest Her community, which is for women in real estate. It's really meant to empower women to financial freedom through real estate. And there's a weekly podcast. There's a Facebook community of over 3,000. I lead our Philadelphia chapter, which has over 800. We have monthly meetups. And For me, as a woman in real estate, I'm so glad that I became aware of the community and have had the opportunity to serve in a little bit of a leadership position by pulling together our monthly meetups and contributing. I do strive to be as involved and active as I can on the Facebook community. I'm probably posting there multiple times a week, especially for those in Philadelphia who are maybe just starting out. The landlord knocks and bruises, anything that I can share to spare someone else some of those expensive lessons when they first start out. That's been it's just been a really wonderful experience to be able to connect with other women in real estate. It's a very supportive community. I wish I had known about it, or it didn't exist when I first started. So I'm so glad that the co-founders started it. And I would just highly recommend it for any of your female listeners that are in real estate. It's a fantastic community to be a part of, and hope to see you there.
Wow. Or Corinn, how do you like to give back outside? No, I'm sorry. That was how you give back. What I was going to say is that the Invest Her network, I know we've had a couple people on the show out of the network that's in the network, or the co-founder,
Liz Faircloth,
yes,
and Andressa Gidelli. Yes.
I was trying to think of Liz. Yes. Liz. Yes. I've had her and obviously Matt on the show a couple times, and just great people. I think a lot of them, and I'm sure that's a great network, no doubt about it. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about you all and your company?
Our website is hfireholdings.com. If listeners are interested in what we're doing from a syndication perspective, you can sign up for our Syndication Insider, where you would get information about any developments, particularly with the fund, or any new acquisitions. And you can contact us through there. And then my email, Corinn, CORINN, @hfireholdings.com. Just send me an email, and I would love to hear from you and see how we can connect and help one another. This is all a team game.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.